Hello guys, and welcome to my channel. I'm so excited for today's video because we got some pretty good reads this month. If you watched my previous wrap up, you know that January was not the best reading month for me, so I was on the hunt for a 5-star read. So of course I had to check out some of the most loved book talk books. So yeah, let's get started. The first book I read this month was Magnolia Parks. The 5th book came out this month, so everyone was talking about it, and I hadn't even read the first book, so I decided to check it out. I feel like everyone has read the series at this point, but if you haven't, it's a contemporary romance and it's dual point of view between Magnolia and BJ. And Magnolia and BJ were childhood sweethearts, but BJ cheated on Magnolia, so of course they broke up. But the thing is, they're part of the same friend group, so they remained friends after the breakup, and they also never truly got over each other, but they don't want to do the work necessary to rekindle the relationship, so they just continue being friends, or this really weird relationship they have where they clearly still like each other, still care for each other, still act coupley without being an actual couple. Magnolia is always looking for a new relationship to be in, and BJ is always trying to get back at Magnolia by sleeping with a lot of girls. So yeah, as you can tell, this is a very toxic book. There's lots of miscommunication. We're basically just following Magnolia and BJ and their friend group and watching them make the worst decisions possible, but it's very entertaining. Don't go into it expecting a lovey-dovey romance because this is not that at all. Like I said, it's very toxic. Please don't accept a relationship like this in real life, but in a book, I ate it up. The characters feel very real, very flawed, very deep and complex, and even though they keep making mistakes, you still kind of root for them because you care about them, you want them to be better. I also loved the writing style. I usually don't go for character-driven books, but in this case, the writing is so well done. You just want to follow them around. If you have watched Gossip Girl, this is basically Gossip Girl in London without the Gossip Girl blog part. Like, you're just following around this group of rich kids. You just experience what they experience, basically. I gave this book a 4.5 stars, so already we're doing so much better than last month. Then I was in a romantasy mood, so of course I had to pick up ACOTAR, A Court of Thorns and Roses. It's enemies to lover. It's a Beauty and the Beast retelling. It has fae and found family. But yeah, it's basically about Farah. She is a human living in the mortal lands of the continent called Prithian, and all of the humans know that fae live in the northern part, but they don't really interact with each other. There's this wall that separates fae from humans, and it's winter in Prithian, and Farah has to provide for her family. She goes out hunting in the woods, and she actually ends up killing a wolf who turned out to be a fae in disguise. So when Farah returns home, another fae turns up at her house demanding justice for his friend. He tells her that she needs to come with him to the other side of the wall, to the fae part of the continent, and stay with him forever. I was so scared going into it because of all the hype it gets. I also heard that the first book was not the best in the series. It's a little bit slow at first. There's lots of world building and we get to know more about the Fae. Like I said, humans and Fae don't usually interact with each other. So even Farah doesn't know a lot about the Fae. So we just go along with her while she discovers this new territory. But then things pick up about halfway through and things get pretty interesting. I love the writing style in this book because Sarah J Maas just includes so many details that seem very random at first or like very mundane or unimportant, but then they come into play later and you find out that nothing is random in this book. Like every single detail matters and it's just so good. Like, you know the feeling you get when things start to make sense later on in the book, like when you start putting puzzle pieces together. I love that, and Sarah J Maas knows how to do that. So like I said, I've heard that the first book in this series is not the best, but I personally thought it was so good. I actually gave it a 4.5 stars and I was just so excited to continue on with the series. I had to go into book 2 like immediately. So the next book I read was A Court of Mist and Fury. I've heard this is everyone's favorite out of the series, so I was so excited. This one is enemies to friends to lovers. It's a slow burn. Let me just tell you, this book is stunning. Like the banter, the tension, the found family, the politics, the character development is just perfection. Also, Rhysand, new book husband acquired. I went through every single emotion possible while reading this book. I was giggling, I was stressed, I was crying. Like, I didn't want it to end. It's a very long book and I just wished it was longer. I was trying to force myself to read it slowly, but I couldn't put it down. And that's when I knew I found a new favorite. Like after reading the Once Upon a Broken Heart series, I hadn't experienced a book that made me feel everything that series made me feel until this book. I was literally gave me all the same feelings, all the same vibes. Definitely adding it to the all-time favorite list. Of course, I gave it infinity stars because 5 stars is just not enough. Like, I can't even tell you what this book made me feel. I can't put it into words. Just read it. If you don't like the first book, push through it just to get to this book, please. I love it. And of course, it also ends in a cliffhanger, so I had to go into book 3 immediately. A Court of Wings and Ruin. I love these characters and this world so much. The little found family in this series, one of the best I've ever read about. And this book starts right where we left off in A Court of Mist and Fury. It's pretty fast paced, but then it like slows down towards the middle because there's this war going on. So of course there's a lot of world building, a lot of politics. I personally don't mind that, but if you do, you've been warned. But then it picks right back up towards the end. And let me tell you, that ending, I was sobbing. I hadn't cried that much since Fourth Wing. If you know, you know. But yeah, I was like ugly sobbing. Wow. It just broke my heart and then put it back together. That's all I'm gonna say about it. I don't want to spoil anything for you. But yeah, please read this series. Of course, I gave it a 5 stars. I just can't give it less than that. It's perfection. And even though that book doesn't really end in a cliffhanger, I was still in that world. So of course I just had to continue with the series, so I picked up A Court of Frost and Starlight after the roller coaster of emotions I went through in the last book. This little novella was everything I needed. It's so sweet. It just follows the characters and I love them so much. They have my whole heart. I really enjoyed seeing them happy and just living their life in this little novella. This is like the Christmas special. They just deserve it after everything they've been through. They deserve peace, and this little novella gives them that. So I loved it, 4 stars. And then I wanted to continue with the series, but I actually don't have the last book with me. I didn't expect to read the whole series like at once. I usually read one book and then I have a little palette cleanser and then I go into the second book and then palette cleanser and like that. But I couldn't do that with this series. I was invested. I just sped through the first 4 books and I actually don't have the last book, Court of Silver Flames, so I've been forced to stop. But my mind is still in Prithian, to be honest, so I'm in a little bit of a reading slump, a little book hangover, because I just want to keep reading that series. But yeah, while I wait for the next book to arrive, I just decided to pick up one of my palette cleansers that I had planned to read this month, and it's called Love in the Time of Serial Killers. And I just thought the cover was giving Valentine's Day, but of course I read it towards the end of the month. I didn't read it for Valentine's Day, but still. So it's a rom-com. It's about this closed off female main character and a cinnamon roll male main character. The book is about Phoebe. She is obsessed with true crime, so much so that she's writing her dissertation on it, but she has to go back to Florida in the summer because her dad recently passed away and her brother have to basically clean out the house and get it prepped so that they can sell it. So she just stays at the house while all of that is happening. But since she's obsessed with true crime, she starts suspecting that her neighbor is a serial killer. Spoiler alert, even though it's not a spoiler, he is not. And she ends up catching feelings for him. Of course, it's a rom-com. I thought the premise of the book was really funny, that's why I picked it up. But after reading it, I found out that this book is not actually for me. It doesn't mean it's a bad book. It's just not for me. Reading is subjective. There might be some books that I like that you do not enjoy, and there might be some books that you enjoy that I personally don't. It's not a one-size-fits-all situation, so I would still recommend it if you like quirky, fast-paced, funny, character-driven books, especially if you're into true crime yourself. It is pretty funny. There were some funny moments. I just didn't connect with the characters personally. So for that reason, I gave it a 3 stars. Those are all of the books I read in February. I really enjoyed this reading month. Book talk didn't fail me this time. My mind is still in Prithian. I'm still waiting on A Court of Silver Flames. It is one of my favorite series now. I highly recommend. Also Magnolia Parks. I'm gonna continue with that series. And yeah. So let me know in the comments below what you read this month. Did you get a 5-star read this month? And let me know if there's any books you want me to check out. Give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it and subscribe for more videos like this. And I'll see you in March with the new reading wrap-up. So bye.